Microphone check.
We're
One,
good.
two, 1, 2. Yes. This is the Blaze the Lion podcast. I am your host, Blaze the Lion, Blaze the Machine, Blaze the owner, Blaze the mastermind sometimes. Blaze the guy who you love to hate, who you judge, but still here. Thank you all for tuning in. We are live right now on YouTube. Shout out to the latecomers who will log in about 10 minutes. You guys are late to everything, but I still appreciate you all. Truly, I do. Right now, for those watching, make sure you like this episode. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a hot one. All right. Please believe. So make sure you like this episode here. Click that like button. Also, subscribe. If you're not already subscribed, subscribe to the podcast. All right. Show some love. All right. 1, 2, 1, 2. Also, if you would like to support, all right, we are on anchor.fm as well. So you can send me your money in various ways. All right. If you want to send it to anchor.fm/blazethelion/support, you have 3 tiers from $1 to $5 to $10. All right. And you get Blaze the Lion podcast shirt, which I'm not wearing today. One time for the King of Pop. Indeed. But just to show my appreciation, we also have webinars and seminars and different things in the works. So those things are coming. They're kind of clogged in the pipeline right now, but they are coming. So just wait for it. All right. This month's theme is doctors. So every week, I have had a doctor as my featured guest. And tonight is the final episode of this theme. So I had to bring in a international closer. All right? Somebody who was going to shock you all, bring you truth, bring you his witty personality, give you gems to remember, and of course, focus on health. Because that's the goal, right? That is number one. If you don't have your health, what really do you have? Indeed. So this is officially episode 45. And I would like to introduce someone who is a chiropractor, someone who has his foot in nutrition and how you're eating. Someone who has his own movement, has his own podcast. Someone who is a builder, who is a creative. Someone who thinks that they're funnier than me. So we'll see. We shall see. You should put that to the test. Someone who is actually genuine and very humble. And I am honored to have this guest. So without any further ado, before I ruin it, welcome Dr. Vincent Esposito.
What's going on, Blaze? Thank you for having me on today. This is gonna be fun.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. So I gave my little traditional introduction, but feel free to let the guests know a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So, it's funny. I was talking about this earlier today because someone asked, because I don't really talk too much about like chiropractic, and it's interesting because I went to chiropractic school kind of with this idea that I wanted to go into like sports medicine. Like I was an athlete in college, and really it came down to me wanting to go into physical therapy or chiropractic school. I knew I didn't want to go the med school route. I wanted to be a little bit more like hands-on, like kind of in the fold, so to speak. And it was interesting. While I was in college, I kind of developed a lot of health issues that I never had before. I put on like 25 pounds, which, in my infinite wisdom at the time, I just figured it was like all muscle mass and I was, getting a lot stronger and bigger. And I thought it was great. Yeah, exactly. But unfortunately, it wasn't just that at the time. Like I ended up developing seasonal allergies, which I never had before. I was getting like brain fog, a little bit lethargic. I just kind of like wasn't really feeling myself. I called it developing a need for coffee. I never drank coffee before then. And I also kind of developed these kind of gut issues that stuck with me. And I always thought I was doing the right thing. I'd try to have like a big salad, like with every meal. And I just didn't put too much thought into my food. And then by the time I get to chiropractic school, we had to take biochemistry again. And we had a naturopathic doctor teach the course. And at Bridgeport, where I went to school, they happened to offer a nutrition program, and taking biochemistry kind of with this naturopathic doctor who kind of taught it through a lens of nutrition kind of piqued my interest. And I decided to go for that kind of while I was there. And, you know, over those first 2 years of chiropractic school, kind of before I started the nutrition masters, I was living by myself for the first time. So in college, I had, you know, roommates, whatever, but in Connecticut, like I was living by myself for the first time, like a studio, and I never cooked before. So it was watching a lot of Food Network. It was a lot of long phone calls with my mom, trying to learn like everything from like learning how to boil water to turning on the oven and not burning down the apartment. And after I kind of like got my feet wet in the kitchen over those first couple of years and learned a lot of basics and a lot of like TV and YouTube and everything in between, about a year into the nutrition program, I'm like, I'm taking all these courses. I still got all these issues that I kind of developed in college. And I was like, why not make myself, you know, my own guinea pig? I'll be patient zero. So I did. I guess at the time, like it was definitely shifted more towards like a standard American, standard Western diet. I mean, dairy was never a big thing for me. But basically with what I was learning in my nutrition masters, with what I was doing in my research on my own, through documentaries like Food Inc. and Cowspiracy and What the Health, and, you know, books. Yeah. And books like the China Study, The Omnivore's Dilemma was one of my favorites. There's a few others that are escaping me right now. Oh, the Blue Zones. That was a big one. The Blue Zones was a big one for me. I started basically transitioning from, you know, having a lot of like conventional animal products to really eliminating a lot of them. You're talking like 2-3 times a day, you know, pretty, you know, normal, I guess, or standard, common. Normal maybe isn't right. Common is a better word. In, you know, your standard American diet. Slowly started transitioning those out, started bringing in more plants, a lot of different beans, a lot of different whole grains. And what I noticed, you know, over the first like 2 months is all those digestive issues I had, the energy levels, like all kind of leveled out. They kind of came back to where I was kind of before college. And over, I'd say like 6 months, 7 months, the 25 pounds that I put on in college kind of all came off, and I didn't do anything different. And then I noticed the next, I guess, spring, the seasonal allergies went away. So I was like, oh, holy crap. Like, you know, yeah, like I have a little bit of knowledge on nutrition, but in terms of like the physical doing of the work, anyone can basically harness the power of this if they really want to. And you know, pretty much by the time I was about to graduate, I wanted to, you know, shift my focus to really wanting to help people help themselves at the end of the day.
Yeah. I remember, so I've been a personal trainer for about 15 years, 16 years. And I remember about 5 years ago when this vegan thing kind of piqued my interest. I remember as I'm studying and I'm buying all these books, some books that you have mentioned, and watching some of these documentaries, I remember being pissed, being upset, like, hold on. I've been in this fitness industry for so long and they never told us any of this stuff. So wait a minute. So I've been telling my clients to drink the whey protein and all this stuff. And yes, I've been bloated and gassy, but I just figured that was everybody. That was just normal. I was pissed. I said, now how am I going to tell everybody throughout all these years that all that stuff is wrong now?
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate, and I think, you know, a lot of health and fitness, like people, professionals, whatever you want to call it, you know, there is an inflection point, I think, in a lot of people's careers where they realize, oh, like, holy crap, like basically the foundation, like core structure of what I was learning is completely wrong. And, and it puts you in a bind, right? Because it's like, do I continue doing what I'm doing because I've built a successful business, because I've, you know, have a certain reputation of doing things a certain way?
Mm-hmm.
Or now that I know better, now that, you know, I've kind of, you know, awakened to kind of what's going on, do I pivot at the risk of kind of losing that, but for the potential greater good of, you know, the people that stick around or the people that you'll meet in the future?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really a conundrum for a lot of people, and I don't think it's really talked about like as much as it should be, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I in my and not that this is gonna turn into a vegan episode for all those watching who aren't vegan. They're like, oh, here he goes.
Yeah.
But I feel like, so I turned vegan in 2017, and maybe it was because that was when I turned vegan, so I was more aware of it.
Hmm.
But I just feel like uh, a lot of the trainers who had already this huge following and they were on TV, some of them were changing too. And I said, oh, so now they're including their own brand of vegan protein shakes. And now
Mhm.
they're creating the vegan meal plan as well. And so it was interesting to see the fitness industry as well just kind of shift with it.
Yeah. I think it's slowly moving in that direction. Um, it's interesting because, like, I do think that there's kind of like a counter current to that, that I think is really focused on some ways. I think this movement's going that I think is confusing and kind of could get people tripped up because,
Mhm.
you know, like it's one thing to be vegan, but it's also like another thing to actually do it in a way that's healthful and healthy.
Yeah.
And, you know, one thing that I think that I don't think I'm pretty confident in this is that there's going to be more, you know, garbage vegan junk food coming out, and to like equate, you know, that with health is that line is going to get a lot blurrier. So, you know, that I think is something I think a lot of people are going to have to, if that's something they're interested in like wanting to pursue, like you have to be a little bit more diligent with it and really understand like what you're getting into or what the reasons are you're doing it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I every time I see the headline news that Burger King or McDonald's in the UK now has a vegan whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, and they're like, oh, this is exciting news. And I say, you know, it's still Burger King, though.
I
It's still
know.
like, it's not like they
I
have a
know.
vegan grill.
I
It's,
know. I know. And it's funny. My fiance just sent me that thing from Burger King today. And it's just like, I mean, it definitely like is conflicting for me because like I understand like what they're trying to do with it. And I just honestly like don't know like how pure those intentions actually are, or to be perfectly honest. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's still Burger, exactly like to your point, it's still Burger King at the end of the day. And, you know, processed, you know, garbage food is going to be that, whether it's from a plant or animal source. And, you know, that's the problem I have. Like earlier this year, I noticed it, especially with like the Beyond Meats and the Impossible Burgers. Like, I get it. It's one thing if you want to get into this thing where it's like, oh, well, it might help with the environment and it saves the animals. And like, that's great. And the environmental aspect, I'm not necessarily an expert on, but obviously the animal part, I think that's pretty black and white. You can say,
Mhm.
oh, yeah. So, but from a health standpoint, they started making health claims like it's a healthier version. And I'm like, but is it really though? Because if I'm looking at that ingredient list, like there's a lot of things on there, a lot of crappy oils that are sprayed with pesticides and are usually rancid and are just going to be super pro-inflammatory. Never mind the GMO soy and everything in those. And it's like, it's one thing to make one claim, but if you're going to start talking about health, like now I have like a real problem, and I think you're really trying to hoodwink people with that stuff, and it's not. They deserve to be called out if that's what they're going to put in their products, in my opinion.
Yeah, it sells. You realize that a lot of these billion-dollar meat companies are buying the vegan company.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh, well, this is a business. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, let's get in on this business. And just people are just gonna, especially those new vegans, well, I'm vegan. And it's like, folks, when you say that you're vegan, they automatically assume that you're just eating salads or that you're a raw vegan automatically. And it's like, oh, well, how are there heavy set or fat vegans, or how are there vegans with health problems? I thought it cures everything. And I said, well, two things. One, the amount of decades we have been eating all this crap, you can't cleanse your body in just, like one weekend of being, you know what I mean? And two, Oreos and French fries and all these other things. You can have bread and white rice all day and be vegan, but is your body really happy?
Yeah, that's what it comes down to, and that's why I said, like, I think, the line on this stuff is only going to get blurrier the longer this goes on. It's unfortunate that's the way it's going, but as again consumers, it really comes down to informed consent, right? Like, it's about what am I seeing right now in the moment, and doing that homework as a consumer for your health, where you're spending your dollars. That stuff really matters.
Indeed. So before we go left and turn this into a hashtag vegan podcast, which I don't mind, however, there is so much to talk about. So let's start current, and then we'll kind of move back a little bit. So in your current journey, especially in this current time, looking at other healthcare professionals, what have you seen? Have you seen the fear pushing? Have you seen more focus on health and building your immune system? Like, what have you seen?
What I've seen, in my opinion, is that there is a clear divide. Now, it seems like, in my opinion, that, like, there are people in whatever you want to call, like, the alternative wellness, holistic space that tend to lean a lot more this way, and similar way that I tend to lean to. It's kind of this, it's almost like this dichotomy between germ and terrain theory. And in my opinion, I don't think they need to be completely exclusive. I don't think they are. I think largely we are governed by our terrain. In other words, like how we treat our bodies, it's our microbiome, it's our, emotions, our relationships, our stress level, sleep, movement patterns, how much we're moving in general. All that stuff is going to indicate how you react and integrate into the environment around you. I do think we do know that certain germs can cause certain diseases, certain illnesses. That can happen. But it's less about being exposed to something than it is how do you integrate it into your body. Because at the end of the day, you have trillions of different bacteria, viruses, microbes inside you at any given one point in time. So this idea that, like, you can sterilize something is, at this point, in my opinion, obsolete. Like, you can't do it. You can't, like, systematically target certain things. This is why you'll even see in mainstream, like, Western medicine, some doctors will recommend taking a probiotic with an antibiotic, because most antibiotics are pretty indiscriminate in terms about, like, what they're killing. So you have to kind of repopulate that flora, which the way I kind of, describe it is usually it's like your own rainforest you have to take care of. And, if you light some torches in it and, set part of it on fire, some things can grow in ways they probably wouldn't have under, normal circumstances. So you have to, take care of that and nourish that. Like that internal ecosystem is basically a reflection of our external ecosystem. So what I'm seeing is that we have one side, and I hate to like break it down into sides like that simplistically, because it's not that simple, but you have one group of people who are more kind of this terrain dominant group where it's like you have to be responsible for your own health. You have to, have some input. Your inputs, your daily inputs matter. And you have this other group where it's like it's very much, unfortunately, I think fear-based. Like you have to get people to realize, hey, we are not genetics. Like genetics can predispose you to something, but that doesn't actually pull the trigger or cause anything. That's done by our actions every day.
Yeah.
And we have the other that literally disempowers people, that is going to basically scare you, use a fear tactic to get you to do something so that you comply. And then on top of that, say, no matter what you do, it's not going to make a difference. And the unfortunate part about that is that's blatantly untrue with the information out there right now. And that to me, I think, is unfortunately the biggest divide, because it's become like strangely a political battle, which to me in the health space makes no sense. Because I don't understand that. And I think what's happening is some people are and health, this includes health professionals, are taking their information basically at face value from these kind of news organizations that are funded by big pharma. And that's a whole different rabbit hole we could go down if you want. But, it's basically taking this stuff at face value, basically giving up your ability to critical think, or just choosing not to, just to take someone's word on something that you trust. And that, I think, is where we're kind of seeing this dichotomy. You're seeing people who are a little bit more cautious or want to see what happens, or, are willing to question kind of where these things come from. And you have another group of people who are just kind of taking everything they hear at face value as if it's fact. And that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah. I want to touch on something, and I think you spoke on it, if I'm not mistaken, maybe last week or 2 weeks ago. It's part of the reason why I wanted to bring you on the podcast, because I said, yes, let's go. So in the chat, and I know the chat has a delay, but let's just see how this works here. So in the chat, you can put your hand, or you can put yes, or you can put a happy face. You can put whatever you want. But in the chat, who uses hand sanitizer regularly, daily? Who uses hand sanitizer?
I would love to know. That would be interesting. I'll tell you, I don't. It's interesting. Like even with that, the skin like has its own microbiome, and same thing with hand sanitizer. If you're constantly using that, you're constantly disturbing that, disrupting that, and that can lead to issues down the road, particularly if you're getting like a regular one that has a lot of these kind of endocrine disrupting chemicals in it. And obviously they're alcohol based, like our skin, a lot of things we put in our skin gets absorbed, whether it's makeup, whether it's deodorant, whether it's hand sanitizer. And, like, where do you think that stuff goes? It gets absorbed through the skin. So like, if that's something you're constantly doing, like, ironically, you're probably putting yourself at a bit more of a risk for something down the road, because you're constantly disrupting that microbiome over and over again.
Yeah. But we were told that to combat this pandemic that we're in, right? It's you have to social distance, you have to wear a mask. If you feel like your throat is sore, the answer is to drink water. And but lots of hand sanitizer. Those are like the 4 bullets.
I know.
And
I know. It's crazy because, the two main, the two main predictors for death of when you're talking about the C illness here we're talking about here. So, the first one is being overweight or obese. That's basically the number one risk factor. But do you know what the second one is? It's fear and anxiety.
ooh,
Fear and anxiety based disorders. So if you're telling people to stay away from each other, to lock yourself in your house, to stay away from loved ones, and you might kill grandma or something like that, do you not think that's going to give you a little bit of anxiety? Kind of shake you up a little bit. And like there's plenty of evidence out there that talks about how being anxious, like being in this kind of fear state, like literally lowers your own immune system. It inhibits your immune system. It puts you in this fight or flight response that you're constantly in, all the time. And when you're constantly in that fight or flight response, you're literally focused solely on the now. You're sacrificing resources for the now instead of the future. And when you're constantly in this perpetual state of fear, you might get you get that rush of cortisol, you get that, initial rush. But if it's constantly there, you end up kind of fatiguing these systems and your immune system. And ironically, in the long run, it leaves you more susceptible. So in a lot of ways, like this stuff is actually backwards. Like distancing and isolating ourselves has only led to, I think, worse things down the road, in separate ways when you're talking about, rises in suicide rates and alcoholism and drug abuse and opioids
depression,
and depression. Yeah, all these things go through. These are all byproducts that you're never going to see actually relayed back to this or directly, because they'll say, oh, it didn't cause an effect. They'll do that. Correlation doesn't equal causation and all this. When they're like, all you need to do is take like a step back and you can see the ramifications of what's taken place to this point. But you'll always get the people who say correlation versus causation. It's not the same thing. And it's like, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure this stuff out. You just need to look and see what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember, especially last year, having people, and I'm not judging, right? No one's perfect. We're all flawed. We're all trying to figure it out at our own rates, right? With our own life experiences. But I remember, especially last year, in the height of it, I guess last year was the height. Even though this year is the height for other reasons, but
yeah.
And seeing people last year cooped up in their home, watching news, drinking wine, and putting on social media that they were pissed off at the other folks who were outside, who were not wearing their mask, and they're spreading and they're doing all of this. And it's like, you're in your house watching news, drinking wine. You're lowering your immune system, and you don't even realize. Right?
Yeah.
The fear, the anxiety, the alcohol already, that lowers the immune system. And so very interesting.
I know, it's crazy. It's really crazy. But, now I think a lot more people are starting to kind of see what's going on and speaking up and seeing how this stuff is like slowly interfering with other parts of their lives. I think that's kind of a big thing. I think a lot of people are just kind of, if it doesn't affect me, I'm just going to roll with it and just be kind of, in the background and not stir up anything and not, say anything because it hasn't affected me too much yet. I think just a lot of people are really passive with this and just willing to go along with it until it really affects them in some way. And then that's, I think, when you'll start seeing it. But that's the trick of like slowly drip feeding this stuff in.
Yeah. So we're gonna jump off the C train, temporary,
Okay.
just a little bit. And last week, in episode 44, we had on a chiropractor.
Oh.
So, we had Dr. Vanessa Walker right here in South Florida. So I am just curious to hear a little bit about your story, how you started as a chiropractor. What was that like?
Yeah, so for me, so when I was in undergrad, I actually worked for the strength and conditioning coach while I was a student. So I got really into training, actually, like working with the other athletes like on campus.
Okay.
And at some point along that line, I started working more with the people that were rehabbing, that were coming back from injury. I was just kind of helping them on whatever they were doing. Like the coach would give me whatever they wanted to do, and I would basically like run them through it. And that's kind of what led me to go down either the PT or chiropractic route. Obviously, I went the chiropractic route, and again, it just kind of spun off from there. The interesting thing, I guess, with chiropractic, and I didn't like realize it, is that like you could kind of go a bunch of different ways, and after that, like a lot of people, like I think, have very different styles. It's very different than I think Western medicine works right now, in the way that like you could go to like 10 different chiropractors and you'll probably get 10 completely different experiences. Whereas if you went to like a cardiologist, if you went to 10 different cardiologists, it would probably be very similar. It's just kind of the way it works. Everyone has kind of like their own flair. Everyone kind of does their own different thing. Everyone uses their own different kind of modalities, kind of based on their kind of experiences, their style, their skills. And I think like as a consumer or as someone who is looking for a chiropractor, like that's something I would encourage like everyone to do, is to like do your homework on whoever that person is, because not every visit, not every doctor kind of operates the same way. And obviously I think, the relationship, that doctor patient relationship is kind of key to let things kind of work. Like I've always looked at it less as like a power position and more like a partnership, because I've always thought, as a client or patient, like really to get the best results, you have to be as active in the healing process as possible. Treatments can help, modalities can help. I think they have their role, but like really there's so much more that happens. You're only in an office for 15, 30 minutes, maybe an initial visit's an hour. Like that's a lot of time throughout the day that you're not there. So, the education part I think is really important. I think that's where chiropractors and a lot of like alternative, you'll see it with naturopaths, acupuncturists, like they tend to spend a little bit more time on that education part, which I think is kind of what separates, them from Western medicine. That I think is the biggest difference.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah.
For chiropractors, I've basically only, from my knowledge, only stuck with basically two.
Mm-hmm.
I know several, but now that I'm thinking about it, those two were vastly different.
Yeah. Yeah.
They really were. One was a kind of a older guy with a big belly and had like the old-fashioned equipment, and I knew it was old-fashioned because it kind of, you had to do this to like a lot of the stuff.
Yep.
So it worked. The
Right.
techniques and stuff worked, but I just remember seeing like a lot of this.
Right.
And then fast forward to in recent years, I have a chiropractor friend of mine, and it's more so building strength and the stem treatment and using bands to improve your range of motion and those sort of things. So
yeah, you get a lot of different flavors depending on where you go. So it's not like it's it's definitely not like a one size fits all thing. Everyone has kind of their own, interests and philosophies with it. So, people can definitely find different people based on like what they're looking to get out of it, what the doctor's philosophy is, and then just kind of, seeing obviously how that kind of gels with where you are as a person.
Yeah. 17 years, Sue, by the same chiropractor. Wow.
Yeah, that's a long time. I've seen some people who go to the same person, for like 20, 30 years. It just becomes part of their, wellness journey, wellness routine. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that happens. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. My primary physician, for the most part, I've had him maybe 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
The first 2 years of me going vegan, though, I didn't really have anybody because I was so driven on, I'm vegan now. I'm gonna heal myself completely, and that's all I need. And so I kind of went through that whole phase for a little bit, and then by year two, I'm like, I need to know if this thing is actually working. I need to like test out some of the. I need to do my blood work and
Yep.
do all the other stuff to just kind of see. So
How'd that go for you?
I remember my first visit. I think after about, why are you really here? And I said, I feel fine. It's no issues. I just want to make sure I'm on. I just remember her saying that. Why are you here?
Isn't that crazy though? Like if you think about it, like because now this hits on like a bigger, I think, issue, and that is like what is healthcare at the end of the day? Like because shouldn't, in my opinion, like a lot of what health should be is how do you maintain health? How do you become like a vibrant, resilient human being? Like that should be, shouldn't like the reaction of that doctor be like, oh, like that, this is great, like, give you some encouragement, like, ask about what you're doing, maybe that's something you can, relay to other patients of his or hers, like, because unfortunately, like the way the system's set up is it's really not a healthcare system, it's a sick care system.
Sick
Like
care.
it's,
I was just thinking, yeah.
yeah, like you don't, there is no incentive to stay healthy, because if you're healthy, that means you aren't going to the doctor. Like, in my opinion, I mean, I'm sure you're aware of this. I mean, doctor in Latin just means to teach, like it's education, really, at the end of the day. That's really where I see, my role in this is it's not necessarily to, have like the biggest practice and the most patients. It's how do you help people ideally like become their own best doctors at the end of the day, like to be more resilient, to be more vibrant, to have to go to the doctor less, believe it or not. Like that's really what the goal should be at the end of the day. And the reality is we all have like the power to do it inside of us. We're all, nature gave this to us, gave us this amazing gift of feeling symptoms, of understanding, like it having the ability to heal. It's just a question of like, are we unlocking that? Are we working kind of like in tune with nature to become the best versions of ourselves at the end of the day? And fortunately in the system, like doctors aren't rewarded for that. They're rewarded for seeing more people. And that's kind of how the game works. So it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. And symptoms, no, we don't listen to our bodies giving us symptoms. We try to suppress the symptoms. No.
It's crazy because when you do
You get
that,
a
like,
fever. No, a fever is a bad thing. It's really not.
I know that fever is going to help you, fight off whatever's going on. If you're constantly dulling it, like, sure, you might feel better in the short term, but it's not like the reason you're getting a fever is so you can heal and adjust. It's like every time, like, if you might get sick, you have to think of it almost like an iPhone download, like an OS update, right? So like it's getting that update, and after it's over, like now you're more resilient. So like now you can survive and be better on the back end. So like that's really what it is at the end of the day. It's just more like, how do you, again, it goes back to that terrain theory thing. It's like, how do you integrate with what you're exposed to and what you interact with in nature? It's not how you eliminate, it's how you integrate, really.
Yeah. Yeah. So you spoke a little bit about oils, right? Causing the inflammation. So do you combine the two with your patients? Do you help them to heal themselves, right? Physically by their movement, and also by what they eat? Or do you feel like the pushback when they're like, oh, just kind of adjust me. I don't want to get into.
Yeah, to be honest, like there's not a ton of crossover I've experienced personally. Now I offer like one to the other or vice versa, but usually most people don't want both. Some people are interested in it because, especially say like if it's injury or something like that, you can use like natural anti-inflammatories like, ginger and turmeric and aloe and everything else to like, or things like glycosaminoglycans and stuff like that. And like things that can help like with kind of rejuvenating if there's joint pain or muscle pain or anything in between, that can be helpful. Some people though, a lot of people generally are like just looking for like a supplement to take, and like that's kind of it at the end of the day. And usually like you got to go a little bit deeper than that. And a lot of times, like you'll have some other disease going on, one of these kind of comorbidities. You can mention this stuff, but it's interesting. Like there's not a ton of crossover. I haven't experienced a ton of crossover. Some people come in for one and that's it. And to be quite honest, like the nutrition stuff, the functional nutrition stuff, honestly, mostly I do it online. So, and they're not people who live near me. So, there hasn't been a lot of crossover, which I think is unfortunate because we're really like, if one thing happens, it affects the entire body. Like we've broken up medicine into like individual systems. You got the digestive system, you got, the liver, you got the stomach, you got the heart, you got, neurology, you got nephrology. We could go down the list, cardiology, but the thing is like, they're all interwoven. They're not actually separate, but because that's the way it's essentially taught to us. And even as like a lay person, that's kind of how you understand it. Like that, you don't understand that like these things are all kind of, they work together. I don't think I've noticed like a lot of people realize like, oh, like this one thing is related to all these other things. And if we constantly look at things as like isolated instances, I think again we're missing the forest for the tree right in front of us. And again, it goes back to that like management type of idea where it's like you're not getting the full picture. We're just looking myopic. We're looking at what's right in front of us instead of what is potentially going to happen if we just consistently look only 3 feet ahead at a time.
Yeah, it's definitely unfortunate. And as a personal trainer, a lot of my clients, oh yeah, that was spam on the back. Don't worry about that. And a lot of my clients are doctors and nurses and people who are in healthcare. And unfortunately, some of them, when I bring up nutrition, it's like, so what do you eat normally? Oh, I eat, chicken and waffles and Denny's and McDonald's, but don't you see patients and don't you have to? No. So you have pain in your knee, right? Yeah. So you don't think that maybe, I'm no doctor, but you don't think maybe, just maybe, that the McDonald's you're eating 3 times a week might, and that knee pain maybe might be, nope,
Mm-hmm.
nope. So yeah, I feel people want to separate. Sometimes I feel like nutrition is a what's that word? Is I can't think of that word. Where they say don't ask a person about their religion,
Oh, it's like
their
taboo.
political. Yeah, yeah, taboo. Yeah, where we can talk about anything else, but I'm gonna eat whatever I want to eat, and that's just it.
Yeah, yeah. Food's kind of tricky because it, like, it's one thing to come up with like a good like nutrition plan, but the thing is, like, the the reality is humans don't generally make logical decisions. We're mostly driven by emotions, and
Mm,
the thing
mhm.
is with food, like so much of what we're programmed to do and what we're programmed to eat comes from our experiences. And usually a lot of those things come from, family members that you're close with, some sort of tradition, maybe, I don't know, grandma makes, this awesome sweet potato pie every
Ooh.
Thanksgiving or whatever. My point is, like, those things tend to really kind of seep into like how people end up eating. Like, it's interesting, like when you take a family history, like, I think people actually think that, oh, like, my mom had diabetes or my dad had a heart attack at, 61. It's like, oh, well, now I have a genetic predisposition to it. And that's not the way usually I look at it. It's like, oh, if that's what your parents had at age 61 and 55 or whatever, like, chances are you're doing similar things because that's what you grew up around.
Mm.
So, mom and dad are teaching you essentially the same things that they learned how to do. So it has much less to do with like this genetic idea and more to do with basically what you're taught. And then you're talking about that becomes a social component, that becomes a family, a psychological, an emotional component. And then if you want to break away from that and you don't have, grandma's sweet potato pie or something at Thanksgiving, now they're going to get offended.
Oh yeah.
And now it's like, oh, wow, did I do something wrong? Is this not good enough for you? And it becomes like a lot of pressure. And like, that's the thing with food that I think is most challenging. It has much less to do with coming up with an actual plan and more to kind of realize, like, if you want to, I guess, really reach like resilient, vibrant health, like, you have to break away from the crowd. Like, being healthy at this point in America is abnormal. It is not normal,
Ooh.
which means like you have to do things that aren't considered normal, and that's likely going to make people probably close to you uncomfortable in some way because you're going to be doing things different than what they're used to seeing you do. And that's hard for some people. You might lose some friends, you might lose some family members, you might get made fun of, you might, you know, be joked about or something like that. But at some point, like, that's the realization, like, you have to come to as a person, is like, what is more important to you? Like, is your health more important, or is, maintaining the status quo? And, I can't answer that for you. I can only kind of show you the way.
Mhm.
And I think really at the end of the day, like, that's like the root cause type stuff that you have to get down to at the end of the day, because those are the people that end up doing the best. It's the ones that can separate that and are willing to, go against or challenge their own kind of internal beliefs and internal belief system.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that culture and tradition is tough. It's tough to break away. Even when I became vegan, and it kind of nudged me to begin to challenge everything
Mm-hmm.
and begin to dig deeper on the government and politics and like religion and the history and all these things. And I felt like my family and friends were like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're going too far. Just continue. And I'm like, no, I want to break some of this stuff. I want to learn. And that's tough. It's definitely not easy. And we blame and when you explain to some people that especially some of the Latin people and Black people, and it's like a lot of that cultural food, your ancestors didn't choose that.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah.
were given what was left over,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then we turned it into our culture, and now that cultural food is killing you.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to upset your family because it's cultural. But if your ancestors had better options, they wouldn't choose that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a little bit too deep for some people.
No, I get it. Like, listen, like I'm Italian American, so like, and it's the same thing. Like, you assume like all this stuff is, cultural, but like really, like it's all been like it's really like hijacked American food for the most part, and like that's another thing. Like you get so tied up in these like kind of cultural things when it's like it's just been kind of like Americanized and westernized anyway. Like it's not actually what you would ever call traditional. Like, to your point, like it would not look the same way that it does, today. So like, again, it has to come down to like, I think, challenging those internal like cultural belief systems that we all have. We all have that background to like some degree. It's going to look a little different, but it's the same kind of concept.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think is something it's going to turn some people off, and there's probably going to be people that are closest to you. And that's usually the hardest part for people, is that it's almost always the people closest to you that are probably going to be, your biggest critics, at least early on.
Yeah. We've just been going, and I
Mhm.
love it. However, I don't want to forget, rather, this one part of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what time it is?
9:55.
Do you know what time it is? It is. Tell them, Sue. Yes. Oh, why is it not working? There we go. Color time.
Oh, okay.
My little dance now. Color time. All right. Everybody, hey, we got it right. All right. They are laughing at your 9:55. All right. This is color time. We do this every episode. So for color time, this is how it goes. I, the host, will say random colors. And for each color that I say, you, our featured guest, will share what that color means to you. It can be one word, it can be various words, it can be spiritual, it can be scientific, whatever. There's no right or wrong answer. It can be humorous, it can be whatever. It's your thoughts, whatever comes to your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready?
Okay.
All right. Here we go. Color number 1. Feel free in the chat to give me some color ideas.
Oh, okay.
Than just saying the
Color
regular
ideas.
eight colors. Yeah, I try to throw people off with like some different colors. So here we go. We'll start basic for now. First color. Color number 1 is white.
White. Okay. Okay. So this one's actually pretty easy for me because I talk about like eating the rainbow all the time. And it's going to be the two ingredients that I use the most, and it's garlic and onion. I understand not all onions are white. I get that. But to me, like those are like two foods that I use pretty much on a daily basis. And I always talk about like using garlic and onions from a medicinal standpoint, from just a flavor standpoint. And like, even if you're like the most novice of cooks, like it's just an easy way to add flavor and nutrition. And I think they're like super underrated, and things that I use like every day. So white, I would go with garlic and onions of all things.
Okay. I think I need some more onions, actually.
There you go.
Reminder. All right. Tomorrow it is. Onion soup. All right. Next color. I like that idea. Here we go. Coral.
Coral. I don't know if this goes with the color as much, but the first thing that popped in my head was a beach. Like I grew up on a beach, so that I don't know has always kind of just I've thought about it with like either the sand or like the reflection or the sunsets. That's kind of where I would go with it is the beach. Kind of
Okay.
missing that this time of year.
Oh, yeah. You guys aren't close to the beach.
Used to be. I used to be. I grew up on the beach in New York City of all places. But yeah.
I've never been to the beach in New York City.
Yeah. Rockaway Beach. That's where that's actually my dad still lives there. So yeah.
Have you been to Miami Beach? South Beach?
No. So unfortunately, the closest I've ever made it to Miami Beach was Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
But not to Miami yet. But that's on the list. It's on the short list of places in the United States that I still want to need to get down to.
Yeah, yeah. When things get somewhat normal, I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but as we shift in this shift, we'll be taking this podcast to more in person. So we'll be traveling with this podcast as well. So you never know.
Very cool.
Yeah, we may do something in person down here, or I may find my way up there or something.
Absolutely, yeah.
We shall see. All right. Right. Yeah. Oh, see, you got some people. See, you got neighbors over here, eh?
All right. Nice. Yeah. Very cool.
Look at that. All right. Here we go. Next color. Color number 3. Let's go with. I said this color a few weeks back, so let's use this. Atomic orange.
Oh. Atomic orange. When I think of like orange, because orange is my favorite color, I think of like general like creativity. That's like the one word that comes to my mind. It's like passion or creativity. I don't think like I'm the most creative. I never did like art. I don't know how to play any instruments, but I kind of found that, I guess, artistic side like through food and, basically doing podcasting and kind of talking with other people. But, to me, that's what that color kind of represents to me.
Okay. I'm surprised you didn't say orange. Figure we were on food.
That's true. Yeah. That's true.
Tangerines, oranges.
That's true. Could have went that route, but yeah, that's true.
Expect the unexpected. I like it.
Yep.
I can dig it. All right, let's keep going. Color number. Oh yeah, go on. All right, next one. Sky blue.
Sky blue. I think of personally, which is weird, is nature. Again, I think, which is weird because I think most people would like relate that to green. I tend to do it with blue. Again, I think it's just from growing up on the beach, like the ocean, the sky itself. That to me was like always the place where I would spend a lot of time, even when I'm home. Like, I just kind of go down to the beach, like take my shoes or my sandals off and just kind of get some of that grounding in. So like sky blue to me, I think is more of like a color of nature, even more so than green, weirdly enough.
You said grounding. So you do meditation?
I do. Every morning right now, yeah.
Powerful. That's life-changing.
Mm-hmm. It really is. I feel it. I notice like when I do it, and I prefer guided ones. I know that's not, for everyone, but I notice a different kind of mood. Like I feel like I'm in a different kind of headspace if I start my day off, even with like a 5-minute meditation. Like it makes a difference. You do have to be consistent with it, but I do notice when I don't do it, I tend to not be as in a positive frame of mind. Let's go with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I realized there are different levels and there are different types and all sorts of things. And I did one program where they were encouraging us to do 2 meditations every day. So you did your morning meditation first thing in the morning. I said, got that. And then you were to do a evening meditation before you eat dinner. And I felt that was just the worst time for me because my evenings are when I'm busiest. So
Right.
to break away from moving and going from gym to gym and grabbing food and then to say, wait, let me do a meditate, like that's so for me, morning, and then I try to fall asleep to some sort of meditation music or affirmations or just something really soothing and helps me to fall asleep. And
Yeah,
I
like
like
that.
those things, like going in my spirit. So,
Yeah.
guess what? You are weird, just like Giselle's son.
I guess the weird ones like orange. I don't know, but
Yeah,
I'll be weird. That's fine. I'm good with weird. I'm good.
never really been a fan of orange. Hmm. But there's power in it, so
Yeah.
I don't knock it. We got 2 more colors, and then we'll close out.
All right.
Here we go. Is this color number 6 already? Is it 6? Let's just say yes. All right. We'll go with midnight black.
Wow. Midnight black. For me, honestly, I'm just staring out the window. I think of like weirdly. This is weird. Like I think of melatonin and like sleep cycles, circadian rhythms.
Okay.
To me, like I think that's like one of the most like underrated or underappreciated parts of health is how like we are really just kind of like sun beings at the end of the day. Like we have literal clocks that are supposed to be in sync with the rise and fall of the sun and moon.
Mm.
And the more that we kind of like ignore those or deviate from them, we see like sleep kind of fall apart. So,
Mm.
midnight black, I think asleep.
Mm. Have you heard this? And if so, how do you agree or not? I heard that yes, you try to get your 8 hours or whatever, but specifically to make sure that you're sleeping between the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. for the best sleep. Have you heard that?
Yeah. So like around that time, that's going to be like when your melatonin production is the highest. It's the greatest. And then usually it's going to peak like somewhere in those hours. Then it'll slowly kind of, dip down. And then, right when you wake up in the morning, that's when cortisol kind of kicks in. That wakes you up and, should get you going for the day. When that cycle's off, when it's not working properly, if you have a lot of, artificial light, especially at night, like that's going to throw off your melatonin production and circadian rhythm. So yeah.
Yeah. Me going to sleep before 10 p.m.
Not gonna happen.
unless I got in an argument or I'm sick.
Right.
It's not in this career. But hey, do what we can. All right, I think
Yep.
this is the final color. Final color. Let me give you an interesting one. Any ideas in the chat? I have one. I'll give them about a couple of seconds, see if they can. I know there's a delay. I'm going to start though. So, final color, sir, is that was what y'all came up with? Gray and yellow? That was what I rated for? All
Those
right.
don't work.
I mean, All right, let's go with fire engine red.
Fire engine red. I think of, it's passion or love, which I think, we can kind of all use at this point. Is, I think, one thing to kind of bring this all home is like, it's okay to have like different opinions from someone. Like you don't have to agree with everything I'm saying, or, you could have a different, opinion. That's cool. But like to be, an empathetic human being, like is really to just understand that like other people are going through human experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And, the beautiful part about being human is that we're all different. We're all kind of unique in our own way. And I think what we're forgetting and how orchestrated this is or not. I think everyone has a different opinion on how orchestrated this all is, but there is kind of this agenda of dividing people. And
Yeah.
I think we need to learn to like unite and appreciate each other for our differences, because we all have, certain skills and passions that can highlight our kind of our best unique selves. And just because you have a different opinion than someone doesn't mean like you can't necessarily love them. Like we have to be able to be more open and be more empathetic with other people who have kind of differing views on things. And honestly, like right now, like that's where we're at. There's two root emotions that exist in this world. They're love and fear, and every emotion is basically a tangent off either love or fear. So we have to make that conscious decision to live either through love or fear. And that's derived through the decisions and actions we make every day. So, that to me, that's where fire engine red goes.
For a second there, I thought you were going to say fire engine.
Oh,
I was hoping that you didn't go there. Yeah, but absolutely. Division. We are weaker divided. We are stronger united. They call this the United States of America, but is it? Right? So yeah, that's absolutely true. Just because you have orange as your favorite color, and I'm like, how is that even right? It's
right.
all about fire engine red. We can't coexist. We can't. No.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean? So, but I think that we got brainwashed into, and I'm trying not to go too deep here, but I feel along the way we got brainwashed as to who the enemy was, and the enemy is not.
It's not ourselves.
Yeah,
yeah.
We're in this.
That I'm sure.
We're all ants of different colors and sizes in the same jar, right?
Right.
It's pointless for the ants to be fighting each other. Let's figure out how the hell we got in this jar. Let's try to unite to get out of the jar,
right,
instead of fighting each other and killing each other in the jar.
Exactly.
Right? So, yeah, that was me trying to break it down in simple terms, but yeah. So I think we're so focused on, because the doctor or because your beliefs don't fit that, then you're an evil person and you're selfish and you're this and you're that. It's like, no, I'm just different. I was raised different. I have different beliefs.
Yeah.
I can still love you.
Yep.
You can still love me. And the things that we do have in common, we can still combine them together.
Right. And
create something great. So
absolutely.
Yeah,
we need to get back to that, I think.
Yeah. So in closing, you kind of already did that a little bit of with the fire engine red, but for anything else in closing, is there any short story? Is there any gem? Is there any quote or just anything that you feel led to share to leave our audience with tonight?
Yeah, I just, to go off the point, like yes, like I do think like, the more we unite, even through our differences, like that's really where our power comes from. As a collective. But to get to that collective point, I think where you can do that is you have to take care of yourself first. And you know, you have to be willing to put some of that time in, make your health a priority, because at the end of the day, you know, no one's going to do that for you. You know, all the shortcuts that are out there, whether it's a pharmaceutical or a supplement, you know, they're short-term answers to long-term problems. And it takes really looking in that mirror, you know, understanding what got you to where you are in the first place, learning. Maybe you have to work with someone to help guide you on that, and that's fine. But, you know, you have to do the work to heal yourself, because you all have the ability to heal yourself. And if you can't heal yourself, how can you expect to help and heal other people, and unite? So you have to make yourself a priority first if you want to go out and help and really make a difference. So that's really, I hope, the through message of all of it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Heal ourselves, man. And there are so many outlets on healing. And maybe it's physical healing, maybe it's mental, maybe it's spiritual. Maybe you feel you're given the task to break a generational cycle, and you feel the weight of the world on your shoulders because it's not easy, but it's not supposed to be easy. You're breaking a generational cycle. So give yourself a little bit of grace here. Like, it's going to take time. You may go through the relapse, and you may, that comes with it, right? But you know, don't stop. And we are powerful. We are stronger together. And
absolutely.
Yeah. I like this. So unfortunately, I'm crying inside, because this is it for the doctor's theme, until my team and I can think of some way to incorporate doctors again in season 3. So we're trying to figure that out. But all right, this is the end. And what better way to close it out than with this famous guy right here, Dr. Vincent Esposito. Next month is November, and November's theme is vegan chefs.
Oh.
So we have a bunch of vegan chefs from right here in South Florida, as well as in other states as well, bringing you showcasing their talents on the skillet or in the toaster oven. Well, hopefully not the toaster oven, but on the grill, on the skillet, in the oven, and all of that. So I'm going to try to encourage them to send us some videos, send us some snippets, some pictures of, and maybe a little bit of their recipes. Maybe. I can't guarantee that, but just maybe. So stay tuned for that. And that'll be the end of season 2. And then we'll go into season 3 with many more different themes. So thank you all. Quick reminder, if you haven't liked this episode, click like. If you have not subscribed, subscribe. Don't subscribe now and then unsubscribe later. Well, I mean, you can do that too, but just do it now. All right. And I want to give a warm applause and a humble thank you to tonight's featured guest for making this fun, making this entertaining, dropping his gems. Where can they reach you? How can they reach you? All of that.
Yeah. So the easiest way to reach me is on social media. Primarily right now, it's Instagram and TikTok. It's at Dr. Vincent Esposito. And then, we do our own podcast that's called The Art of Eating. That's on Spotify and iTunes and all the places you listen to podcasts.
Okay. The Art of Eating, you said? Oh, I like that. Definitely going to check that out. And is there a website or anything?
You can check out my website too. That's insideouthealthwellness.com.
All right. Let's get that going. Insideouthealthwellness.com. It always takes me back to school when I'm trying to spell.
No.
On a live podcast. I'm like,
it's not the easiest.
I before E before. Yeah. All right. So Inside Out Healthwellness.com.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Thank you again to our guests. Thank you again for those listening, from our audience, for your questions, for your color ideas, even the gray and the yellow, which was a little bit too common here. See, they're already saying thank you. I know I'm gonna get texts and DMs. Yeah. See.
All right.
So you got fans down here in South Florida. See?
All right. Well, I'm happy to chat with whoever wants to. So whoever wants to reach out, that's great.
There we go.
No.
I love it, man. This was the Blaze the Lion podcast. Peace and love.